The cemetery was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that swallows sound, breath, hope. And there, beneath the shadow of a marble headstone, knelt a man the world called unstoppable. Darius Cole, billionaire, titan of industry, a black king who'd built an empire from nothing, was now broken. His hands trembled as they traced the cold letters carved into stone. Malik Cole, beloved son, rest in peace. But Malik wasn't resting. He wasn't dead. He was standing 20 feet away, hidden behind an old oak tree, watching his father sob like the world had ended. Because for Darius, it had. What Darius didn't know, what no one knew, was that the fire, the death, the funeral, all of it was a lie. A poison-laced, blood-soaked lie crafted by the two people he trusted most. And in a few short days, that lie would explode in a courtroom, tearing down masks and exposing monsters. But first, let's rewind. Let's go back to the moment Darius Cole's world shattered. And the moment his son made a choice that would change everything. Before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. And if you believe that truth always finds its way to the light no matter how deep the lies go, hit that subscribe button because this story will restore your faith in justice. The wind cut through the cemetery like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Darius Cole's legs could barely hold him. He'd walked this path 100 times in the past 2 months, but it never got easier. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the ground itself was pulling him down into the earth where his son lay. Or so he believed. He knelt before the grave, his expensive suit now wrinkled and stained with dirt and tears. The man who commanded boardrooms, who made billion-dollar deals with a single phone call, couldn't even stand upright anymore. His grief had hollowed him out from the inside. His once powerful frame looked thinner now. His eyes, usually sharp and strategic, were dull and red-rimmed. "Malik?" His voice cracked. "How am I supposed to go on without you, son?" He pulled a small silver chain from his pocket, the one he'd given Malik on his 8th birthday. The boy had worn it every single day, until the fire. Until Vanessa told him the cabin had burned to ash with Malik inside. Until the world told him his son was gone. Darius pressed the chain to his lips, sobbing openly now. "You promised me, Malik. You promised you'd always be here. You said we were a team, remember?" Behind the oak tree, Malik heard every word, and it broke him. The boy's hands gripped the rough bark so hard his knuckles turned white. Tears poured down his face, silent and hot. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream, "Dad, I'm right here, I'm alive!" But he couldn't. Because if they found out he'd escaped, even for a moment, they'd kill him. Or worse, they'd kill his father. Malik had heard them. He'd heard everything. Vanessa, Reggie, laughing, celebrating, toasting to Darius's slow, poisoned death. And now, watching his father crumble in front of a lie, Malik realized the cruelest truth of all. Sometimes love means staying silent. Sometimes survival means breaking your own heart. Darius stood slowly, clutching the chain like a lifeline. "I'll keep going, son. I don't know how, but I'll try." As he turned to leave, dragging his feet like a man already half dead, Malik closed his eyes and whispered into the wind. "I'm coming, Dad. I promise. Just hold on a little longer." But the wind carried his words away, and Darius walked on, unaware that his son was alive, unaware that the real nightmare was only just beginning. Malik waited until his father disappeared beyond the cemetery gates. Then he ran. His legs burned, his lungs screamed. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Because if Vanessa or Reggie realized he'd slipped out, even for 20 minutes, it would all be over. The cabin wasn't far. A quarter-mile through dense woods hidden from roads and neighbors, the perfect prison. Malik had memorized every creak in the floorboards, every shadow that moved at night. He'd learned to be invisible, to breathe quietly, to cry without making a sound. He slipped back through the rear window, the same one he'd pried open hours earlier. The rusted latch groaned softly as he pulled it shut. He froze, heart hammering. Silence. No footsteps. No voices. They don't know. Malik crawled back onto the thin, stained mattress in the corner of the locked room. His hands were still shaking. He pulled his knees to his chest and tried to steady his breathing. But all he could see was his father's face, shattered, hollow, lost. They did this to him. They did this to us. For 2 months, Malik had been a ghost, a secret, a boy erased from the world. He didn't know why at first. He only knew that one night, Vanessa had driven him to this cabin, smiled that sweet smile of hers and said, "Wait here, baby, I'll be right back." She never came back. Not the way she promised. Instead, the door locked, the windows sealed, and Malik became a prisoner in his own nightmare. But tonight, everything changed. Malik lay still on the mattress, eyes wide open in the dark. He heard muffled voices drifting from the other room. At first, he thought he was imagining it. But then the voices grew louder, clearer, and what he heard made his blood turn to ice. "It's been 2 months already, Reggie." That was Vanessa's voice. Smooth, calm, deadly. Malik's stomach clenched. He sat up slowly, barely breathing. "And that fool still doesn't suspect a thing," Reggie replied, his laugh low and cruel. "Your husband's out there crying like a broken man, thinking his son burned alive. If he only knew." Vanessa laughed, a sound Malik had once found comforting. Now it made his skin crawl. "Let him cry," she said coldly. "Meanwhile, the inheritance is almost ours. I've been slipping the poison into his tea every morning. Little by little. Slow enough that no one will suspect. In a few weeks, Darius Cole will be dead, and everyone will think it was grief that killed him." Malik's hands flew to his mouth to stop the scream rising in his throat. "Poison. They're poisoning Dad." "You're a genius, Vanessa," Reggie said, his voice dripping with admiration. "He trusts you more than anyone, and here you are, killing him with kindness." "He deserves it," Vanessa hissed. "Years of playing the dutiful wife to that arrogant man. Always Darius Cole this and Darius Cole that. The great black billionaire. Well, soon he'll be a great black corpse and will take everything he built." They clinked glasses. The sound echoed like a death sentence. Malik pressed his back against the cold wall, tears streaming down his face. His chest heaved with silent sobs. The woman who'd tucked him in at night, the uncle who'd taught him to ride a bike. They were monsters. And his father, his strong, unbreakable father, was drinking poison every single day, believing it was love. "I have to tell him. I have to save him." But how? He was locked in, watched, trapped. Malik clenched his fists, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. A fire ignited in his chest, a raw, desperate fury he'd never felt before. "If I don't do something, Dad will die, and I'll be stuck here forever." As Vanessa and Reggie toasted to their victory, Malik made a decision. A terrifying, impossible decision. He was going to escape. Not just for a visit this time. He was going to run all the way home, no matter how far, no matter the cost. Because his father's life depended on it. And so did his own. Can you imagine being a child and hearing the people you trusted plot your father's murder? The fear, the helplessness. The choice Malik has to make next will leave you breathless. But real quick, if you're feeling this story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they remind us what real courage looks like. Now, let's see what Malik does next. Malik waited until the cabin fell silent, until the laughter died, until the only sound left was the wind scraping against the windows like skeletal fingers. He lay perfectly still on the mattress, eyes locked on the ceiling, counting his heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. He had to time this perfectly. One mistake, one creaking floorboard, one shadow out of place. And it was over. 4, 5, 6. Finally, the house settled into that deep, dead quiet that only comes in the darkest hours of night. Malik slid off the mattress, his bare feet touching the icy floor. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to stay still, to stay safe. But safety was a lie. Safety had abandoned him 2 months ago. He moved toward the back window, the one with the rusted latch he'd been loosening for weeks. His fingers trembled as he gripped the frame and pushed. The wood groaned softly, and Malik froze, his heart nearly exploding in his chest. Silence. He pushed again. This time the window gave way. Cold air rushed in, biting his skin, but it felt like freedom. Malik climbed through, his small body slipping into the night. The moment his feet hit the ground, he ran. The forest was a nightmare. Branches whipped his face, roots grabbed at his ankles. Stones tore the soles of his bare feet until they bled. But Malik didn't stop. He couldn't. Every step was a prayer. Every breath was a promise. "I'm coming, Dad. Hold on. Please, just hold on." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time didn't exist anymore, only the burning in his lungs and the pounding of his feet against the earth. When the first light of dawn broke through the trees, Malik saw it, the edge of the city, tall buildings rising like steel giants, and somewhere in that jungle of glass and concrete was his father. Malik's legs buckled. He stumbled, caught himself, and kept running. By the time he reached the gates of the Cole estate, the sun was fully risen. The mansion loomed before him, grand, familiar, home. Malik's vision blurred with tears, but he forced himself forward. His fists pounded on the iron gate. "Dad!" His voice was hoarse, broken. "Dad, please!" He hit the gate again and again, desperation clawing at his throat. And then, footsteps. Heavy, slow. The gate creaked open, and there he was. Darius Cole stood in the doorway, a shadow of the man he used to be. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt. He looked like a man who'd already died inside. But when his gaze landed on the boy in front of him, everything stopped. His mouth opened. No sound came out. "Malik?" The name fell from his lips like a whisper, like a ghost, like something too fragile to be real. Malik's legs gave out. "Dad!" Darius moved faster than he had in months. He lunged forward, catching his son before he hit the ground. And then they collided, father and son, in an embrace so fierce it felt like the world might shatter around them. Darius sobbed, deep, guttural sobs that tore from his chest like they'd been buried there for years. "Malik, my God, Malik, is it really you?" "It's me, Dad," Malik choked out, his face buried in his father's chest. "It's me. I'm here. I'm alive." Darius pulled back, his hands trembling as they cupped his son's face. He searched Malik's eyes, as if trying to confirm this wasn't a dream, wasn't some cruel trick his broken mind was playing on him. How is this possible?" "The fire," Vanessa said. "There was no fire, Dad." Malik's voice cracked, but he forced the words out. "It was all a lie. Vanessa and Uncle Reggie, they planned everything. They faked my death. They've been keeping me locked up, and Dad..." His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "They're poisoning you." Darius froze. His grip on Malik tightened. "What did you say?" "Every morning, the tea Vanessa makes you. It's poison, Dad. I heard them talking. They're waiting for you to die so they can take everything. The company, the estate, everything." The words hung in the air like a noose. Darius's face transformed. The grief melted away, replaced by something cold, something dangerous. His jaw clenched. His eyes burned with a fury Malik had never seen before. "They did this." His voice was low, lethal. "My own brother, the woman I married. They took you from me. They tried to kill me." He stood, pulling Malik up with him. His hands were steady now, his mind sharp. "Listen to me, son." Darius's voice was iron. "They think they've won. They think I'm weak, broken, but they just made the biggest mistake of their lives." Malik looked up at his father, and for the first time in 2 months, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. "What are we going to do, Dad?" Darius's eyes gleamed with cold, calculated rage. "We're going to make them pay. But first, we're going to let them think they've already won." Inside the mansion, the air was thick with tension and possibility. Darius paced back and forth in his study, his mind sharper than it had been in months. Malik sat on the leather couch, exhausted but awake, watching his father with a mixture of awe and fear. "They think I'm dying," Darius said, his voice steady now, controlled. "They think grief has destroyed me. Let's give them exactly what they want." Malik's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Darius stopped pacing and knelt in front of his son, gripping his shoulders firmly but gently. "I'm going to fake my death, Malik. I'm going to make it look so real that Vanessa and Reggie will have no choice but to believe it. And when they come for the inheritance, when they think they've won, that's when we strike." Malik's eyes widened. "But Dad, what about me if they find out I escaped again?" "They won't." Darius's voice was firm, but his eyes betrayed the pain behind his words. "That's the hardest part, son. You have to go back." "What?" Malik's voice cracked. No, Dad, I can't. Listen to me." Darius cupped his son's face, forcing him to meet his gaze. "If you disappear and stay gone, they'll know something's wrong. They'll panic. They might run, or worse, they might come after you again. But if you go back, if you pretend nothing happened, they'll think they're still in control. And that gives us the advantage." Tears welled in Malik's eyes. "I just found you again. I don't want to leave." "I know, son, I know." Darius's voice broke for just a moment before he steadied himself. "But this is the only way we win. 1 more week. That's all I need. 1 week to die, to let them think they've taken everything. And then you escape one final time. You meet me at the old iron bridge in Central Park. You remember it?" Malik nodded slowly, his throat tight. "The spot where the plaque is cracked. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, exactly 1 week from today. Can you do that?" Malik wiped his eyes and nodded again, this time with determination. "I can do it." Darius pulled him into another crushing hug. "You're the bravest person I know, Malik. Braver than me, and I promise, we will end this. Together." They held each other for a long moment, father and son, two warriors preparing for battle. The next 7 days were a masterclass in deception. Darius Cole began his performance. He canceled meetings, he stopped answering calls, he let his appearance deteriorate, unshaven, disheveled, hollow-eyed. Word spread quickly through the business world. Darius Cole is falling apart. Vanessa played her part beautifully. She hovered over him with false concern, offering him tea, soup, comfort. "You need to rest, baby," she'd whisper, her voice dripping with synthetic sweetness. "You're not well." And Darius would nod weakly, sipping the poisoned tea she offered, except he never actually drank it. He'd pour it into plants when she wasn't looking, or let it spill, accidentally, onto the floor. But to Vanessa, he looked weaker every day, sicker, closer to death. Reggie stopped by often, playing the concerned brother. "You gotta pull through, D," he'd say, clapping Darius on the shoulder with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "The company needs you. I need you." Darius would simply nod, too weak to respond. Behind closed doors, Vanessa and Reggie toasted their success. "He's almost gone," Vanessa whispered one night, her eyes gleaming with greed. "A few more days and it's ours." Meanwhile, Malik was back in his prison, the cabin, the locked room, the suffocating silence. But this time, it was different. This time, he wasn't just surviving, he was waiting, counting down the days, the hours, the minutes. 6 more days, Dad. I can do this. 5 more days, 4. And then on the 7th day, the news broke. Billionaire Darius Cole dead at 45. The headline exploded across every major outlet, radio, television, social media. The world stopped. Darius Cole, self-made mogul, tech visionary, one of the most powerful black entrepreneurs in the nation, was gone. Cardiac arrest, they said, brought on by grief and declining health. The funeral was a spectacle. Thousands attended, cameras lined the streets, politicians gave speeches, celebrities sent flowers. And at the center of it all stood Vanessa Cole, draped in black, her face hidden behind a veil, sobbing into a handkerchief. "I've lost everything," she wailed to the press, her voice trembling with Oscar-worthy emotion. "He was my heart, my soul." Reggie stood beside her, stone-faced and solemn. "My brother was a giant," he said, his voice thick with false grief. "And I'll make sure his legacy lives on." The crowd ate it up. Sympathy poured in. Condolences flooded social media. Everyone believed the story. But in a car park 3 blocks away, hidden behind tinted windows, Darius Cole sat very much alive. He watched the funeral through a pair of binoculars, his jaw clenched, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He watched Vanessa cry crocodile tears, watched Reggie shake hands and accept condolences with that smug, satisfied smile. "Enjoy it while it lasts," Darius muttered, his voice cold as steel. "Because in 3 days, your world ends." 3 days later, the inheritance hearing was scheduled. The reading of Darius Cole's will, the transfer of his fortune, his company, his empire, straight into the hands of Vanessa and Reggie. They arrived at the courthouse, dressed to kill. Vanessa in a tailored black dress, Reggie in a sharp charcoal suit. They walked in like royalty, heads high, confident. Inside the courtroom, lawyers shuffled papers, journalists whispered, business executives filled the seats. The judge took his place at the bench. "We are here today," the judge began, "to oversee the probate of the estate of Darius Michael Cole." Vanessa sat with her hands folded, a serene smile on her lips. Reggie leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, already imagining the zeros in his bank account. The lawyers presented documents, signatures were prepared, the inheritance was moments away from being official. And then, bang! The courtroom doors exploded open. Every head whipped around, cameras spun, gasps filled the air. And there, standing in the doorway like a man risen from the grave, was Darius Cole, alive, breathing, burning with fury. And beside him, holding his hand tight, was Malik. The room erupted into chaos. Screams, shouts, flashes of light from 100 cameras. But Darius didn't flinch. He walked down that aisle with his son at his side, his eyes locked on the 2 people who'd tried to bury him. Vanessa's face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Reggie shot to his feet, stumbling backward. No, this can't be. Darius stopped in front of them. His voice was quiet, deadly. Surprise. The trap is set. The villains think they've won. But you and I both know the storm is coming, and when it hits that courtroom, it's going to be explosive. Before we get there, if you're on the edge of your seat right now, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think is going to happen next. Will Darius pull it off? Will Malik make it to the bridge? Let me know below. The courtroom was pandemonium. Voices collided, overlapping in a cacophony of shock and disbelief. Cameras flashed like lightning. Journalists scrambled for their phones. Lawyers froze mid-motion, papers slipping from their hands. And at the center of it all stood Darius Cole, a dead man walking. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. Order in this court. But no one was listening. All eyes were locked on the impossible. Darius and Malik, hand in hand, alive and radiating a fury that filled the room like smoke. Vanessa finally found her voice. It came out shrill, desperate. This is insane. This is a trick, some kind of sick joke. She pointed a trembling finger at Darius, her face twisted in panic. You're supposed to be dead. I watched them lower your casket into the ground. Did you? Darius's voice was ice. He took a step closer, and Vanessa recoiled like he was a ghost come to drag her to hell. Or did you watch them lower an empty box into the ground while you celebrated stealing everything I built? Reggie tried to interrupt, his voice shaking. Dee, listen, man. This is crazy. We mourned you. You poisoned me. Darius's words cut through the room like a blade. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Darius turned to face the crowd, his voice rising, commanding every ear in the building. For 2 months, I was told my son died in a fire. For 2 months, I cried at his grave. For 2 months, I drank tea prepared by my loving wife, tea laced with poison meant to kill me slowly so no one would suspect murder. Gasps rippled through the audience. Vanessa shot to her feet, her hands shaking. That's a lie. I loved you. I took care of you. You tried to bury me. Darius roared, his voice echoing off the marble walls. You and my brother faked my son's death, kidnapped him, held him prisoner, all so you could take my fortune. Malik stepped forward, his young voice trembling but clear. I was there. I heard everything. Every camera in the room swung toward the boy. Malik's hands were clenched into fists, but his voice didn't waver. They kept me locked in a cabin. For 2 months, I didn't know if I'd ever see my dad again. And one night, I heard them talking, laughing. They said my dad was a fool for trusting them. They said the poison was working. They said soon he'd be dead and no one would ever know. Tears streaked down Malik's face, but his gaze was steel. They don't deserve mercy. The room exploded again. Shouts of outrage, accusations hurled across the aisle. Reggie tried to push past the table, but 2 bailiffs blocked his path. This is a setup, Reggie shouted, his face red with desperation. They're lying. They're trying to frame us. Frame you? Darius pulled a small device from his jacket pocket and held it up. I have recordings, audio, video. Every word you said, every toast you made, every time you celebrated my death. He pressed play. The courtroom fell deathly silent as Vanessa's voice filled the air, crystal clear. He deserves it. Let him cry. Meanwhile, the inheritance is almost ours. The poison is working. Then Reggie's voice, smooth and smug. That fool doesn't suspect a thing. He's crying at his son's grave like a broken man. If he only knew. Laughter. The clink of glasses, a toast to our victory, and the fall of that poor fool. The recording ended. The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's legs buckled. She grabbed the table to keep from collapsing, her face drained of all color. No, you can't. Can't what? Darius stepped closer, his voice a deadly whisper. Can't prove you're a liar, a thief, a murderer? He turned to the judge, his tone formal now, controlled. Your Honor, I have documented evidence. Medical reports showing traces of arsenic in my bloodstream, recordings of their confessions, witness testimony from my son. And I have security footage from the cabin where they held him prisoner. The judge's face was grave. He nodded to the bailiffs. Detain them, Vanessa shrieked, trying to run, but 2 officers grabbed her arms. She thrashed, screaming, her carefully constructed mask shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. You can't do this. I'm his wife. I have rights. "You have the right to remain silent," one officer said flatly, snapping handcuffs around her wrists. Reggie didn't fight. He just stood there, pale and sweating, as the cuffs clicked into place. His eyes met Darius's one last time, and in them was nothing but defeat. "I'm your brother," Reggie whispered, his voice broken. Darius's expression didn't change. "You were my brother. Now you're just a criminal." The officers led them away, Vanessa still screaming, Reggie silent and hollow. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some shouting, some simply staring in stunned disbelief. Darius watched them go, his chest heaving, his heart pounding, and then he felt a small hand slip into his. Malik looked up at him, tears streaming down his face, but smiling. "We did it, Dad." Darius dropped to his knees and pulled his son into his arms, holding him like he'd never let go again. The courtroom noise faded into the background. The cameras, the voices, the chaos, none of it mattered. "We did, son," Darius whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We did." And for the first time in 2 months, Darius Cole allowed himself to cry. Not from grief, but from relief, from victory, from the overwhelming, bone-deep gratitude that his son was alive and safe in his arms. The world outside the courthouse was a frenzy. News vans lined the streets, reporters shouted questions, crowds pressed against barricades, phones raised, capturing every angle of the impossible story unfolding before them. But Darius didn't stop. He didn't answer questions. He didn't pose for pictures. He simply walked through the chaos with Malik's hand locked firmly in his body a shield around his son. Security cleared a path, and they slipped into a waiting car. The door closed. The noise cut off. And for the first time since the courtroom explosion, father and son sat in silence. Darius exhaled slowly, his hands still trembling. He looked down at Malik, who was staring out the window, his small frame still tense, still braced for danger. "You okay, son?" Malik nodded, but didn't speak. His jaw was tight, his eyes distant. Darius reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "It's over now. They can't hurt us anymore." Malik turned to him, and Darius saw something in his son's eyes he hadn't expected. Doubt. "Is it really over, Dad?" Malik's voice was quiet, raw. "What if they get out? What if they come back?" Darius's heart clenched. He pulled Malik close, wrapping an arm around him. "They're not getting out, not for a long, long time. And even if they tried," his voice dropped, firm and steady, "I will never let anyone take you from me again. You hear me? Never." Malik nodded against his chest, and slowly his body began to relax. The tension melted, inch by inch, as the car carried them away from the courthouse, away from the cameras, away from the nightmare. Toward home. When they pulled through the gates of the Cole estate, the sun was beginning to set. Golden light spilled across the sprawling lawn, painting the mansion in warm, amber tones. It looked the same as it always had. Grand, powerful, untouchable. But now, it felt different. It felt like a second chance. Darius opened the door and stepped out, still holding Malik's hand. Together, they walked up the stone steps, through the front door, and into the quiet, familiar space. The mansion was silent. No Vanessa, no Reggie, no poison, no lies, just the two of them. Malik stood in the grand foyer, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. His eyes lingered on the staircase, the family photos on the walls, the chandelier hanging above. Everything was exactly as he remembered, but he wasn't the same boy who'd left 2 months ago. "Come on," Darius said softly, guiding him toward the staircase. "There's something I want to show you." They climbed the stairs together, their footsteps echoing in the empty house. When they reached the second floor, Darius stopped in front of a door, Malik's door. He hesitated, his hand resting on the doorknob. "I couldn't bring myself to change anything," he admitted, his voice thick. "Every day, I'd walk past this door and I'd hope, I'd pray, that somehow you'd come back." He opened the door. Malik stepped inside, and his breath caught. The room was untouched. His bed was still made, the blue comforter folded neatly at the foot. His books were stacked on the desk. His basketball sat in the corner. His sneakers lined up by the closet. Even the photo strip from the arcade, him and his dad laughing, making silly faces, was still pinned to the corkboard above his desk. It was like time had stopped. Malik walked slowly into the room, his fingers trailing over the desk, the bookshelf, the basketball. He picked up a small action figure from the nightstand, a superhero he'd loved when he was younger, and held it tightly. "I thought I'd never see this again," he whispered. Darius stood in the doorway, watching his son, his heart breaking and healing all at once. "I kept it ready for you. Because I knew, somewhere deep down, I knew you were still out there." Malik turned to him, tears streaming down his face. "I'm home, Dad." "You're home, son." Malik ran to him, and Darius caught him, lifting him off the ground and holding him close. They stood there in the middle of the room, two souls piecing themselves back together, one embrace at a time. That night, Darius sat in the chair beside Malik's bed, just like he used to when Malik was younger. The boy was curled under the covers, his breathing slow and steady, but Darius could tell he wasn't asleep yet. "Dad?" Malik's voice was small in the dark. "Yeah, son? Are you gonna stay here? Tonight?" Darius's throat tightened. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here." "Promise?" "I promise." Malik nodded, his eyes finally closing, and slowly his breathing deepened, his body relaxing into true sleep, the kind of sleep he hadn't had in 2 months. Darius watched him, his heart heavy with gratitude and grief. He thought about all the nights he'd sat in the same chair, staring at an empty bed, praying for a miracle. And now, here it was. His son. Alive. Safe. Home. He reached over and gently brushed Malik's hair back from his forehead. "I love you, kid," he whispered, "more than you'll ever know." The house was quiet. The world outside continued its chaos, headlines screaming, social media buzzing, the story of Darius Cole's resurrection spreading like wildfire. But inside this room, none of that mattered. It was just a father and his son, together again. Finally, at peace. Before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. And if you believe that truth always finds its way to the light no matter how deep the lies go, hit that subscribe button. Because this story will restore your faith in justice. The next morning came softly. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and gentle. Malik woke to the smell of pancakes. Real pancakes, not the stale bread and canned soup he'd survived on in that cabin. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. But then he heard his father's voice downstairs, humming an old tune, and he knew it was real. He was home. Malik patted downstairs in his pajamas, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Darius stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the focus of a man who hadn't cooked in months. When he saw Malik, his face broke into a smile, a real one, the kind Malik hadn't seen since before everything fell apart. "Morning, champ. You hungry?" Malik nodded, sliding into a chair at the kitchen island. Darius set a plate in front of him, stacked high with pancakes, drizzled with syrup, topped with fresh berries. "Eat up. We've got somewhere to go today." Malik looked up, confused. "Where?" Darius's expression shifted, growing serious but gentle. "The cemetery. It's time we put this to rest. For real this time." An hour later, they stood side by side at the iron gates of the cemetery. The morning air was cool, and a light breeze stirred the leaves overhead. Darius held a small duffel bag in one hand, Malik's hand in the other. They walked the familiar path in silence, past rows of headstones beneath the shadows of old oak trees until they reached it. "Malik Cole, beloved son, rest in peace." The words carved in marble, a lie etched in stone. Malik stared at his own name, his own grave, and felt a chill run down his spine. "It's weird," he said quietly, "seeing your own tombstone." Darius knelt beside him, his jaw tight. "It's more than weird, son. It's a scar, a reminder of what they tried to steal from us." He set the duffel bag down and unzipped it, pulling out a sledgehammer. Malik's eyes widened. "Dad, what are you?" "This." Darius pointed at the gravestone, his voice thick with emotion. "This isn't you. You're not dead. You're not gone. And I'm not letting this lie stand here one more day." He stood, gripping the sledgehammer with both hands. His chest heaved, his eyes burned, and then, with a roar that seemed to come from the deepest part of his soul, Darius swung. Crack. The impact echoed through the cemetery like thunder. A jagged line split the marble down the center. He swung again. Crack. Pieces of stone flew. The name fractured. The lie began to crumble. Malik watched, tears streaming down his face as his father destroyed the grave that had haunted them both. Each strike was a release. Each crack was a rejection of the nightmare they'd survived. When the headstone finally toppled and shattered on the ground, Darius dropped the sledgehammer and fell to his knees, gasping for air. His shoulders shook. His hands were bleeding from gripping the handle so tightly. But he didn't care. Malik knelt beside him, wrapping his arms around his father. "It's over, Dad. It's really over." Darius pulled him close, pressing his forehead against Malik's. "You were never meant to be buried, son. You were meant to live. And that's exactly what we're going to do." Malik nodded, his voice strong despite the tears. "I'm not a ghost. I'm alive. And I'm going to stay that way." Darius smiled through his tears, cupping his son's face. "And I'm going to be there for every single moment, every step, every dream, every victory. I'm never leaving your side again." They stood together among the broken pieces of marble, two survivors standing on the wreckage of a lie. Around them, the cemetery was silent, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of grief anymore. It was the quiet of closure, of healing, of freedom. As they walked back toward the gates, hand in hand, Malik looked up at his father. "What happens now?" Darius exhaled, his gaze steady on the horizon. "Now we rebuild the company, our lives, our trust in people. It won't be easy. There will be questions, investigations, trials, but we'll face it together." Malik nodded. "Together, always." They passed through the iron gates and into the sunlight. Behind them, the shattered grave lay in pieces, a monument to betrayal destroyed. Ahead of them, the world waited, messy, complicated, uncertain, but alive. In the weeks that followed, the story of Darius and Malik Cole became legend. The resurrection, the betrayal, the reckoning. It was everywhere. News broadcasts, podcasts, documentaries. People called it the greatest comeback story of the decade. But for Darius and Malik, it wasn't a story. It was their life, and they were determined to live it fully. Darius returned to his company, stronger and sharper than ever. He rooted out corruption, rebuilt trust, and reminded the world why he'd become a billionaire in the first place. Not through deceit, but through vision, grit, and integrity. Malik returned to school. At first it was hard, the whispers, the stares, the questions. But his father's words echoed in his mind. "You were meant to live." So he did. He laughed with friends. He played basketball. He told his story when he was ready, and stayed silent when he wasn't. And every night Darius tucked him in. Every morning, they had breakfast together. They rebuilt what had been stolen, brick by brick, moment by moment. One evening, months later, they sat together on the back porch, watching the sun set over the estate. The sky was painted in shades of gold and crimson, and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. "Dad?" Malik said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Yeah, son? Do you ever think about them? Vanessa and Uncle Reggie?" Darius was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "Sometimes, not because I missed them, but because I needed to learn the lesson." "What lesson?" "That blood doesn't always mean loyalty. And loyalty doesn't always come from blood. The people who truly love you will show it in their actions, not their words." Malik nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you're my dad." Darius's eyes misted over. He reached over and ruffled Malik's hair. "And I'm glad you're my son, the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat in silence, side by side as the sun dipped below the horizon. The darkness came, but it wasn't frightening anymore, because they had each other. And that was enough. Years later, Malik would stand at a podium, a young man now, giving a speech at a youth empowerment conference. He would talk about survival, about resilience, about the power of truth. And he would tell his story, not as a victim, but as a victor. "They tried to bury me," he'd say, his voice strong and clear. "But they didn't know I wasn't meant to stay underground. None of us are. No matter what you've been through, no matter who betrayed you, no matter how deep the grave they dug for you, you can rise." The crowd would erupt in applause, and in the front row, Darius Cole would sit with tears in his eyes, clapping louder than anyone. Because his son wasn't just alive, he was thriving. And that, more than any empire, any fortune, any victory, that was the greatest comeback of all. If you felt this story, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this remind us that no matter how dark it gets, the light always finds a way back. And so will you. See you in the next one.